David Quadrelli alongside Chris Faber here for Canucks Army, here at the Sports Bar Live at Rogers Arena. We got a bunch of hockey sticks on the wall behind us. Here, Patrick Allvin spoke moments ago, just out that curtain behind us that you actually can't see. But Patrick Allvin spoke about the Canucks free agency day. Chris, what do you make of it as a whole? Ilya Mikheyev, that's the big story today. 4 by 4.7.
Yeah, I didn't think the Canucks were going to be spending this much money on one player, and I think investing in 4 years is a big investment. You're obviously getting a very fast player who's going to help with the penalty kill, but it feels like it's not a massive risk, I don't think, but I think you have to qualify it as somewhat of a risk for sure.
And Allvin mentioned that himself. He said there is some risk with this player. Sure, he scored 21 goals last season, highest point season of his career, and now he's cashing in on a contract. Allvin did say that he thinks that Mikheyev is capable of scoring 15 to 20 goals a season. Do you agree with that valuation? Do you think the Canucks should be looking for more from him? What do you think about that?
Well, it will be really interesting to see where he plays. Like, I can see him being a winger for Elias Pettersson. I can see him being on a line with Bo Horvat. I think that's the thing that you like about Mikheyev is that he can play with a lot of different centers on this Vancouver Canucks team, and he will be a good fit. Like, I'm pretty confident that he is going to be a nice fit for the Vancouver Canucks and their forward group. I'm just a little curious if this was the right step to take at this point when we've heard Jim Rutherford talk about this team needing to be better at getting, the defensemen to be able to break out the puck. And we've talked so much about this defense needing to be rebuilt. It was a little surprising to see a forward be the big splash that they go for, and specifically a winger as well. I think this puts a lot of pressure now on a Jason Dickinson to play center, on Elias Pettersson to for sure be a center, and then looking at it, like, we have to assume right now that JT Miller is going to be there at training camp, and he's going to be a center that they're going to have to rely upon for next season as well. So I find it interesting. I did like some of the lower value signings that we ended up seeing, but seeing them go all in on a winger, it was a little surprising to me.
It was a bit of a surprising move, but you mentioned those low-value wingers. A lot of people liked the signings that the Canucks made today. Which was your favorite out of all of them that you saw? Which is the one that you kind of look at and say, this was a good signing by the club? Yeah,
I like the idea of Curtis Lazar. I think his name was out there so much for the Vancouver Canucks. Somebody could have told you this deal was done last week and you would have believed them. Like, I like that addition. I think at 3 years, even if it doesn't end up working out for him at the NHL, it's a contract that you can bury in the AHL and it won't affect your salary cap. And I think, bringing a BC kid home who, when we talked about him at Canucks Army and some of the articles of projecting people who might be a free agent that the Canucks should target, like, his defensive numbers actually really impressed us in a fourth-line role. And if he can bring that to this team, add a little bit on the PK, I'd be pretty happy with Curtis Lazar.
Now, they went out and got Collin Delia, who's going to back up either Thatcher Demko at the NHL level, or you assume Artur Silovs or Mikey DiPietro at the AHL level. What I found really interesting is when I asked Allvin about carrying 3 goaltenders in Abbotsford, he said there's going to be competition down there in Abbotsford. It's not going to be a 3-goalie system. It's going to be a starter and a backup, and that's not what we saw last season. Someone got sent down to the ECHL, obviously, in Artur Silovs, but I'm really interested to see because Allvin did mention there's going to be competition at the AHL level as well as the NHL level.
Yeah, and I think there should be. I think setting up these goaltenders to have a little bit of a battle for the spot in the AHL is going to be big, and I think it's not the worst thing in the world if you have to see Artur Silovs get more minutes in the ECHL again. He's still so young, right? Like, we need to remember that. He's at development camp right now, and seeing what Silovs has been able to do, I think there's a lot of potential in his game. You like a lot of the things that he does, but it's really not the worst thing in the world. And I know people get, a little bit worried because he's going down to the ECHL, and that's not a league that you want to be in really as a hockey player. But for a goaltender in Artur Silovs' situation, if he happens to be the odd man out, it's not the worst thing in the world, and I don't think anybody should panic about Silovs just yet.
No, I mean, we've talked about it before. We've said it the whole time. This is the right call by the organization if they are to send a goalie down to the ECHL, of course, because, it's better than having 3, which is what we saw for most of last year, right? You want to be having your young prospect getting a lot of games played, and that's what they're going to have with Artur Silovs if he should go down to the ECHL. Closing thoughts. What are your closing thoughts on the Canucks free agency day today?
Yeah, I think they added some players that can help a lot to this lineup. It's going to be curious to see how they kind of shuffle the deck now moving forward, because we can see that there are a lot of forwards in this situation right now. And don't get me wrong, like, when you're kind of projecting the lineup right now, some players that you're seeing as potential fourth-line guys are like Nils Höglander or Tanner Pearson. So, like, there's a lot of depth now at forward. It'll be interesting to see what they kind of shake down, because I don't think they want to run into the season next year with Nils Höglander and Tanner Pearson as fourth-line guys. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense for these are guys who have played in the top 6 in the past. So a little bit of the shuffling of the deck is something that we're probably going to see here pretty soon. But, not a bad day. Like all in all, I think this was a pretty good day for the Vancouver Canucks, getting towards being a competitive team.
Feels like something else could happen in the coming weeks. We'll have to wait and see. David Quadrelli, Chris Faber at the Sports Bar Live for Canucks Army.